It's a career. It's not a job. It's a career.
Yeah.
I tell people,
You know, and that's what you have to look at.
You gotta live, eat, breathe, and sleep this. And I feel like in the institution, if they're gonna make this work, start letting them out the institution a little bit. Put them in a van, put them on a chain gang. I don't know what you're gonna have to do, but let them come out here and kind of experience.
Do like
it a
work
little bit.
releases?
Yeah. Let them come
Let
out
them
here.
do guest spots?
Absolutely.
That would be amazing.
That would be smart.
Because I think there's no way for you to physically teach them tattooing in prison the right way unless you can actually physically bring them out here.
Dude, all they're learning is that
You're learning
vocation.
They're learning all the
man.
technical skills.
You're learning the fundamentals of
Right.
how to possibly lay a clean tattoo. You're learning the fundamentals on probably how to technically apply a stencil. You're learning the proper sanitation, I'm guessing.
And the
I
art,
believe.
yeah.
Well, yeah, they have to.
I mean, they're learning those things, which is all great,
Right.
man. That all goes into our industry, but you're not teaching them how hard it is to physically be in this career and push and be with these
to
these
pay
heavy
rent and
hitters
to
out
market
here.
yourself and to manage
Exactly.
clients and to deal
Like,
with the communications.
People don't understand how much it takes to run a tattoo shop.
Welcome back to more Artistry Unearthed. We are Cryptic Tattoo and Social Gallery here in Springfield, Missouri. For this episode is actually a part 2 of a previous episode that we've done with Derek Hoskins, owner of Mad Goat Tattoo in Columbia, Missouri. In that interview, we get to know Derek, his backstory as a tattoo artist, and we kind of close off the episode with a little bit of information about him and his time in prison, which we follow up with in this episode. We kind of change gears and specifically talk about a topic that we've learned about through an article talking about a prison here in Missouri that has opened up an apprenticeship system there in the prison, ran by a mentor who's serving a life sentence, which we thought was pretty interesting. We had some ideas and thoughts and concerns about how that was gonna go or what that could mean. Derek's insight, actually being a tattoo artist in the prison system, he had very specific insight that we thought was very interesting. So enjoy.
So that's a long session with Manny. Like, were the officers fine with that, or did he have a way that he was being sneaky?
It was so in Cameron, when you made it into the WMCC side, not the Crossroads side, it was a lot more lenient. I mean, you got to be out in your wing as long as you were in your housing unit. You were allowed to be out in your wing about 7 to 8 hours a day.
Okay.
And then the only times you would technically have to lock down is during state count. Like, there's a state count that all the COs do. When they call state count, you have to be locked in your cell, and you can't come out until state count's cleared. And then once they get the code all around the state of Missouri that the state count has been cleared, then they send that off to wherever it goes, to the central hub, which is in Jeff City. And they clear that count and they send it back to every single prison in the state of Missouri and say, okay, now for the camps that, allow this, you guys can let your inmates back out. And then
so they're not walking by every 15 minutes.
I mean, technically, yeah, they are. I mean, they come around and do their checks every, just their wing tours but you see them start out on one side of the housing unit. So if you see them come out of the bubble, you keep a bus man, is what we call it. You keep a bus man that's, either sits in the edge of the drip edge of your door on the edge of the sink and just literally sits there and watches the entire time out the door. And you pay them to do this.
Right. Lookout duty.
So, or sometimes you get a really good watchman that can multitask and be out in the wing doing his own thing like a regular, inmate just out there roaming around. And then every now and then he'll make that signal when a CO, comes out of the bubble. He'll say, hooty hoo, or, just something, something like that triggers you to know, like, okay, you've got about T-minus probably 15 minutes before they actually get onto our side of the housing unit, or 10 minutes.
So then you kind of stash everything away.
Yep. Or like you said, or you
throw on your shirt, you got blood soaking through it. You're like, nothing to see
here. Yep. And sometimes, what we would do is we would actually keep, it was kind of a joke that we would do, Manny put me under the bunk many times. I would have to hide under the bunk like a little clown in a treasure box.
Dang.
And I
super hygienic.
I'd have
under
to
the
get
bunk on the
underneath.
concrete.
I'd have to get underneath the bunk, and then they'd drape the blanket down, and then Manny and his cellie would just sit in there like they were watching TV. You know what I mean? And then the CO would walk by, you know, click the light, look in the cell, and they'd keep moving. You know, and then as soon as they got out of the wing, go back to tattooing. You know, and so we did that over the course of 2 days to finish my stomach. By the second day, it was already really bruised. Extremely bruised, but the entire time I watched Manny with multiple huge pieces. I watched him lay bodysuits out in prison, and
man, that would have been.
I mean,
He's got nothing but time.
They would be the sickest work, some of the sickest pieces of art that I've ever seen. Like I've got my whole sleeve done by Manny on my left side, and then I have my entire stomach done by Manny. And dude was the truth when it came to a single needle tattoo machine, and he kind of taught me art. I mean, honestly, he taught me the real concepts behind art. The man would sit down and draw with me anytime I wanted to draw. He taught me how to work with charcoals, because he had a lot of things that he had access to. You know, he'd been in prison so long. Like I said, he had a lot of things that were grandfathered into the facility that most inmates couldn't get. He had a lot of pastel colors that you could draw with, you know, pencils out the wazoo. Like the dude was a legit artist, and he taught me a lot when it came to, you know, how to lay a tattoo down. And that, not only that, he had a lot of like reference books to help you know pay attention to like the way that a woman's body, for example, the way that a woman's body curves, how you can fit that tattoo to the curvature of a woman's body and make it look appropriate. Anatomy. I mean, he had a lot of anatomy books. Believe it or not, whenever I was in prison, I would go check out anatomy books out of the library so that I could learn and teach myself body anatomy. That's a big thing in our industry. You know, laying a tattoo needs to be done properly. That comes all the way down to the stencil. So if you're not laying a stencil the correct way, it's going to look funky on the body, and you don't want that. So Manny taught me a lot of things in prison, believe it or not, that I feel like prepped me for the streets. I had the street smarts on kind of, you know, how to put a machine together and make a real street machine out here work, but I didn't have the fundamentals until I met Manny in prison.
Right.
And so when I got out, it was all or nothing. I mean, my dad actually ended up helping me out with some money whenever I got out, just so that I wasn't broke whenever I got out. You know, coming out of prison, I feel like most people don't have the opportunity. I feel like if the state were to just give some people some opportunities and maybe help them out a little bit financially, they wouldn't possibly go back and reoffend. You know what I mean? So me having that kind of that financial backing kind of pushed me to be like, okay, you want this. This is what you've dreamed of the whole entire time you were in prison. Now it's time to make it happen. And now you have a little bit of fun.
That's where we're at, because that whole deal that's going on now here in the prison system here in Missouri, as to where you've got a guy that is now teaching a select few artists at a time and giving them full-blown apprenticeships,
right?
You know, and they're tattooing. I want to say, if I remember reading the article correctly, they tattoo for something like $10 an hour.
Yep, it's $10
and
an
hour. It's incredible. But there were some things within that article that definitely had me questioning some things, because it's like,
and it has me scratching my head too. And like,
not that it's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Let me make that very clear. Not that it's a bad thing.
I want to give a little background before we get into it, in case somebody wants to look it up, because it's been in the news lately. So the facility is called WRDCC. That's the Western Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is about an hour north of Kansas City, if you're familiar.
It's actually right next to Cameron and Crossroads. I was literally not even 35 miles from that camp.
Right. So in the state of Missouri, there are 21 different vocational programs instituted in about 10 of the facilities we have. This one, they're thinking, you know, people are going to tattoo anyway. If we implement this, can we find a way to make it more hygienic, to manage the kind of imagery people are getting on themselves so it's not gang tattoos?
Right.
We give people the opportunity to cover up things that are like gang tattoos or offensive that are prevent them from getting future jobs, because cover-ups are a lot less time intensive and cost intensive than laser removal. And so this lady, Karen, it might be Podgman, sorry if I'm pronouncing it, from the DOC, she says that one of the main goals was to do those cover-ups and to give people a chance at a future, because there is documented evidence to show that any kind of education especially career and technical training, is going to lead to more success after incarceration, reduced recidivism. It makes the communities safer because these people aren't going in and out, in and out, in and out of prison. They're finding an option. And they said, honestly,
well, the state is licensing them,
Mhm.
and which this is part of where I question some of it because when if you've never been incarcerated,
Mhm.
they specifically ask you on that application if you've ever been incarcerated, if you owe any money, if you owe these certain things. So the state is doing some sort of background, check into
Right.
you as an individual.
Yeah.
So these people are actually gaining physical licenses from the state of Missouri and from the Department of Registration
Mhm.
prior to them ever leaving
The institution.
the institution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But it again, and then I wonder, because then it's that aspect of now that they're getting out, they have a license, they have that ability to go and obtain employment, which is very, very difficult to do as a felon.
Yes.
And and at that point, how many of these studios now are willing to go, okay, I'm going to let a felon into my shop.
Mhm.
Nothing, again, please understand,
Yeah, no.
nothing against people and what crimes they have committed, because I understand that people can be, rejuvenated and be
Become
able to come out,
well-adjusted, right.
and come
Listen,
out the other side and be able to do
I
things.
mean, I totally
So-
don't take offense to it at all.
I-
As being a former felon myself, man, I mean, I've got a pretty long rap sheet on myself.
But
the-
felons have,
but the thing is, felons do have the ability,
getting a job anymore because that is on their record.
Yeah.
And they, even a normal
Well,
application will ask you that.
Me being a shop owner, I understand it where these guys that own these shops are coming from whenever a felon or somebody fresh out of prison.
So then,
Look, I have the mentality that these guys do, and it's nothing against anybody. Like I said, I've been to prison, so I understand it to an extent that most people don't, because I've dealt with it firsthand. I stepped foot out of prison and went straight into all these shops in Columbia that have been around 20, 30 years
Mhm.
and was asking, hey man, you please give me a shot? And I had a decent portfolio, you know what I mean?
how were you received by that?
I got received and got told to fuck off, pretty much.
Not received
Okay.
well.
So then,
And-
let me ask this question. So then, being a felon, being incarcerated, being a now productive business owner of a studio, how would you receive somebody that was a felon that walked in and said, "Hey, give me a job"?
Somebody that's
are you
just any random person
So-
that's
No,
in
no,
prison,
no,
or
it-
somebody out of this program specifically.
Well, not even out of that program. They don't even have to.
No,
be.
they don't even
Let's
have
just-
to be out of that
Let's just say
program.
that they're a felon. They come in from out of state or whatever,
Right.
and they're like, "Hey, I did this in prison. I've got some sort of training. I've got this." How would you receive them? I mean,
So-
so let's break that barrier.
Let's go.
here.
So let's technically put myself in another me shoes is pretty much exactly what, we're touching base on. It would lead to the fact is, first of all, I would never just, outright do what I got told in the beginning of me trying to go out and solidify my career in Columbia. I would be a little bit more respectful because I'm a respectful dude. I don't think that I don't do this whole cliche treat, people like I'm better than them because I'm a tattoo artist. Like, I know a lot of shops that are like that. Ego kills talent. We all know that in this industry. I know how to humble myself, so I wouldn't automatically turn cold shoulder. That would never be what I would do, because I've been in that guy's shoes. If I see hunger in his eyes, because I'm a pretty good judge of character, if I see hunger and I can tell this person actually can fundamentally tattoo really well and has the drive and the heart of a freaking lion,
Mhm.
like, I'm going to sit down and actually going to get to know you a little bit first. The thing is, I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to be like, hey man, right now I don't physically have the space, to, possibly take you on. But what I can do for you is I can solidify you and bring you around me and let you come hang out with me, let you see how things are ran, let you yourself prove to me, hey man, can I clean your station up every now and then? Or hey man, show me that you are into it and show me that you have the drive to really want to put, if you say coming to my shop as a felon, somebody that's fresh out of prison, I want to see the drive that I had whenever I got out. That's exactly what I want to see. That's the only way I will give you.
So you're giving them a chance to prove themselves, but they still have to prove themselves.
Exactly. I'm not just going to throw it in your lap.
Are you looking at that aspect that you look at their prison stint as that's their formal training, or are you stripping them down to nothing and going, look, you need to relearn this whole process because it is not
what
like
you think.
What
no,
you
I'm stripping you down, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
With the exception of this program.
Yeah.
With the exception of this program, because this program's not turning out.
It's not turning out dozens of people.
20, 30, 40 artists that are in prison, tattooing.
It's turned out 4 so far. And I don't know if they've even been released yet.
No, they haven't, according to the article, because one of them he was doing 7 years, and then I think he had like 1 year left or 2 years left. 2 years left.
They're not bringing people into the program that have 40 years left.
Right.
So, in my personal opinion, I have a lot of, like everybody's been scratching their heads with this entire topic. I know a lot of artists are. I know a lot of artists think it's an amazing thing, amazing opportunity. I don't disagree at all. I wish they would have had something like this in place when I was in prison, because I know of a time when this was actually being mentioned, believe it or not, when I was in Cameron, that this should happen. And Manny was even talking about trying to be a part of it.
Right.
And he was writing the governor and everything. Like, he really was one of the advocates, I remember, because I sat right there next to this man a lot in prison. I mean, we spent 2 years in the same wing together. So in and day out, I was watching this dude do legal paperwork. I was watching him build tattoo machines. I watched him do everything. So,
but it's
I think it's a great program.
Took years of pushing to get it to that point.
I wish that the state would think about this a little bit more. I think that if they're going to do this, okay, what you need to do is find one guy or 2 guys or, 3 amazing artists, just a good little set of team, okay, that's legit. They're solidified and they're willing to give up what they probably have going on in their own lives, and they're willing to put in full-fledged everything into this basket, and then you fund this project, and then you give them a 10,000 square foot warehouse building, turn it into the largest tattoo shop in the state of Missouri, and make it to where when these inmates get out, they have a place where they can come prove themselves as a solidified artist, build their names up kind of a little bit in the industry, working under this place, make it almost like a tattoo school. Further along the training outside of the institution.
Once they get out.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's important because transitional is so
important. I want
important.
to see.
So basically, I don't want to get off base here. I see that, I could see that vision, but then we as artists, even today, are talking about oversaturation.
Yeah.
Heavy oversaturation. So I get the aspect of the 4 artists and being taught. My concern is because within that article, the guy who's teaching said these guys can go and get a job
no, they can't
quickly.
You're feeding them false dreams.
So no. I'm under the impression that no, you can't, because 1, you're a felon. 2, you may be taught properly, which is great. That is
on
hands
real
down
equipment, in
wonderful,
a sterile environment,
on quality stuff, things that are legit in the industry today. What I would rather see them see happen is that once they are done with that and they are licensed, I think the state needs to have some sort of job placement.
Yes.
They should be looking for studios
that
for these guys to put them in a studio, talk to these studios going, hey, are you willing to accept this person? Granted, they've been in prison, this is what they've done.
Right.
This
is
what they've gone through. This is
period.
This is the training they've received, blah, 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 blah. And allow them to come in and do the, start with a studio instead of just going, okay, yeah, we've trained them. Now we're going to cut them loose. They're licensed artists, but here you go. Because I don't really think that they're going to be able to walk into just any studio and get a job.
They're not.
Well, and they're coming out with, they're coming out with, they are teaching them how to draw. They are teaching them on practice skin. They're doing the CPR certification, the bloodborne pathogen training,
everything that we would normally do.
they're tattooing on skin, they're working in a sterile
But-
environment. So they're getting that. But then there is the additional adjustment of like, especially if they've been institutionalized from the time they're a teenager.
Now,
and they've
now,
never
now you're
Well,
not
had to
this is-
adult
yeah,
on the
because now
outside
you're not
before.
tattooing other
What-
inmates. You're tattooing actual clientele that are
Right.
from the outside.
But you
Not everybody's gonna like what you're tattooing
Right.
in the
Exactly.
institution.
yes.
And so, you know what bothers me the most about this entire topic, that I feel like also doesn't get touched base on very much, is they're not teaching these guys. It's honestly, to me, it feels like the state is teaching these guys false dreams. They're giving them a pipe dream, is what I feel like they're giving them.
How so?
Because they're giving them, like David said, they're giving them the license. They're giving them everything to
Mhm.
build up their confidence. Like, oh my gosh, I made it. Because I know what it felt like whenever I got my license, man. It was
Mhm.
the greatest day of my life. I cried. I legit cried the day that I received my license because I remember getting told that I wasn't ever going to be anything.
Right.
And I actually went and got my license the right way. I took a real apprenticeship. I didn't learn much from the person that was apprenticing me.
I think
Right.
that's the general
But-
rule of thumb.
But the thing is, like,
Right.
the thing is, like, I studied and I paid attention to other artists that actually intrigued me. I actually
Right.
went and involved myself around other guys. Some lake artists, believe it or not. I went to some of their shops, and was like really learning about tattooing even through my
Mhm.
own apprenticeship. The thing is, the reason I feel like the state's feeding these guys false dreams is because, for one, you're giving them a license, you're giving them the big head that they made it, okay?
Mhm.
And then they get out and now they realize, oh my gosh, I have this license, but in reality, it's a piece of paper. No matter how good it makes me feel inside,
Mhm.
not every shop's going to accept you.
Right.
And that goes all the way down to, yes, understand no judgment of anybody being a felon, but that goes down to, if you come into my shop as a felon and are trying to get a job, I am going to do a background check on you.
Mhm.
And if I see things like, that you were a big time thief, any of those things, they
Mm.
immediately
So red
raise big
flag for your
flags to me.
business.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's going to
I
be
have
hard.
over $100,000 worth of stuff in my shop,
Right.
and
can't
I
risk
don't want to
it.
go to sleep every night worrying that you're going to rob me.
Right.
And it's nothing against you, but I don't know you. You
Right.
know what I mean? So
So then, yeah, my perception was right. It's going to be difficult for these cats to
course.
go out there and land
Yeah.
a job. It's
But-
not
unless
even,
you
they can be the
fundamentally
most
give them a job right
talented
off the
person.
bat.
It's going to be
there, but-
difficult for anyone coming out of any prison vocational
Mhm.
program to get a job. It's going to be
Yep.
difficult for the plumbers and the electricians.
The diesel
and
mechanics,
every
like
job-
for example, I took diesel mechanics when I was
Right.
in prison. I took VTS diesel mechanics. I finally made it good enough to where I could be in a mechanic shop around tools, things
Mhm.
like that. I got trusted within the prison. I passed diesel mechanics, top of my class in there, had a graduation and everything.
Mhm.
I didn't do anything with it. I did it because it fulfilled my time when I was in prison.
Right.
That's the reason I did it now. And I also did it because, one day if I ever own a diesel, I'll be able to work on it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? That wasn't my end all goal to be a diesel mechanic at the end of the day. A lot of these guys, in reality, I'm sorry, but a lot of these guys in prison join these vocational programs to give themselves something to do while they're in there, because I'm sorry, you wake up every day in and out, chained up and caged up like an animal.
Mhm.
So any sort sense of reality or normality makes you feel human.
Right.
So when they give you tools in your hand, that makes you feel like a human,
Right.
because you're able to hold a wrench.
But that still has value,
You
even
know?
if you don't ever become a diesel mechanic.
Right.
Yeah.
If it was giving you something constructive to do, building your skills, keeping your mind busy, that's time you're not spending doing something that's detrimental.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, like, a lot of the guys that I feel like they're putting in these programs, a lot of them do have gang ties.
Mhm.
Who's to say when these guys get out that they're not going to just run straight back to their gang?
so, but this particular program, so the guy running it was a tattoo artist for years and years.
Mhm.
He ran into a medical crisis of his own that prevented him from being able to tattoo anymore.
Yeah.
And so he was a good fit for this because he's teaching them how to tattoo, not just prison style, but style that people would want on the
Mhm.
outside. He's making sure they learn how to do it right, and he's invested in it. So they're learning the stuff. They can get out. They can tattoo if they can find a place. Of course, that's going to be a challenge. But how many guys you think are wanting to be in this program? I would expect the competition's really high and the spots are limited. There's probably not people going in that don't already show incredible artistic promise and
Oh, yeah.
drive.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's already self-selecting like the cream of the crop. And so I think if they're coming out, they're fully licensed, they can say, I mentored under this guy that has a name for himself. And they say, I've got my certs. I know how to do the CPR, the bloodborne pathogens, all that. And they've got an incredible portfolio. I don't know that that's not setting them up for success any better than teaching them plumbing, you know?
Yeah.
And of course it's going to
not,
be
because
challenging.
Because you
somebody,
haven't proved
there's
me
going to
nothing
have
yet.
to be an owner out there that is
Mhm.
willing to take
Willing
that
to put
risk
their name on the line. Yeah.
and go, here's you a spot.
Yeah.
Now,
And they're gonna have to
I
fight
can
for
only
it.
hope that you would make the most of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you did, you know, when you were in there learning that vocation. Now here you are, you're going to have to earn your way.
Yeah, because
Just
me
like
as
anybody
me
else,
as a
all
formal,
over again.
me as a formal inmate. So anybody that knows Columbia, Missouri, I mean, we have a lot of shops that have been there for 20, 30 years plus, like I said.
Mm.
So me getting out of prison and me finally able to find a shop, with the place I was working for, they were right downtown. They were right in the heart of everything. They literally are
Mhm.
right next door to one of the largest, most longest lasting shops that's been there for a long time. The owner, Gabe Garcia, has owned 2 shops in that town. Tattoo U is one of the oldest standing tattoo shops in it till this day in Columbia, Missouri. And then you got Iron Tiger. You know, like those 2 shops are the cream of the crop shops in Columbia, you know. And so now I'm here, I am Little Fish. I'm joining in a pond full of all these, you know, guys that have been in this town for a really long time. I was jumping into a shark pool, you know what I mean? These guys already don't like anybody that steps into their shop. They already don't like any other guy that says, oh, I'm an artist and I can draw. They want you to prove that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't just take this title and be like, I'm a tattoo artist and not take it seriously. You know, a lot of us take it very seriously. I know what tattooing means to me. And being in prison and things like that, I always said I was going to be successful. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. When I got out is when the real action happened. It was constant day in and day out. And that's what they don't tell these guys. And that's why I feel like they're setting them up for failure. They don't tell them how hard it really is going to be in this industry to be able to continually be productive in this industry. They don't tell them that you're going to have a client that might pass out on you every now and then. They don't tell you that you're going to have to wake up every single day of your life and hustle. They don't tell you, like...
But what if he is telling them that? We don't know that he's not telling that. Because this is a guy that was running a shop.
I mean,
so he should know
I can only hope
that,
that they're telling them that.
I would hope so, yeah.
And but I can only hope that he's actually for real giving them the reality of what they're stepping into.
And so, you know, like, you had a garbage apprenticeship, your formal, official, let's get licensed apprenticeship. I had a garbage apprenticeship. Your apprenticeship it existed technically.
It existed,
you know,
but it was not.
But that's
again being self-taught.
Honestly, that's more than half the people you talk to that are tattooing, right?
Yeah.
Like, 75% of the people. So if this guy is like passionate, knows what he's doing, is teaching these individuals who are wanting to learn how to do this professionally and have all the time in the world to dedicate to this. Like, if they have the drive to make it happen, they're probably getting a better apprenticeship than I did, honestly.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what I'm saying. That I can only hope that, but I
do. What's weird is the flip to that is that, granted, they may be getting the better apprenticeship than you did, but it was also easier for you to get in than it probably would be.
And it took me going to 9 shops.
There's no way for them to physically
portfolio.
show these inmates. There's no way for them to physically show these inmates what it really is like here. On the streets
on the outside,
they can't show them.
They can't show them.
You can give them a sterile room. You can give them a sterile room and make them feel
and do art
awesome,
great. But nothing's going to prepare them for the real world experience.
I had to jump hand full into that, and I actually, believe it or not, cool thing that we're on this topic. I actually work on a CO. I tattoo on a CO very regularly. I did a huge cover up for her and her husband. Her husband is also a CO at Fulton, and she asked me these exact questions of, you know, how do you feel about this? And I gave her my honest opinion. I told her I think it's a great opportunity, but I feel like
there's still some things they got to work out.
There's a thing when it comes to, because I know what I did when I got out. I put my everything into this. I lost sleep over this. There was nights that I was ready to, you know, I'm going to be honest. There was nights I was honestly suicidal because I was wondering if I was actually good enough to make it in this industry. You know, because I seen how many amazing artists there was, and these guys intimidated me. And
it's tough to figure out where do I fit in.
Yeah.
And so I kept pushing myself, and I told myself I'm not gonna give up, man. I'm a Hoskins. I'm not gonna give up. And you know,
and I'm not gonna. I can't say this specifically, but statistically, maybe 1 out of those 4 is going to succeed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They're
Maybe
gonna pick
1
up
out of those 4 is going to truthfully succeed
addiction
because
is a very
somebody
real
will open
thing.
the door. Somebody will open the door for them, because you and I know another artist that's like that.
Right.
And he was given that opportunity and he hit the ground running and has not given up
Yeah.
Mhm.
on any of it.
But he
And-
did
and it-
struggle too.
he
And he
did.
had times where it's like, are you going to go back to where you've been?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
Because
sure
there was,
looking like it.
because for me, there was always that question, are you going to revert? And there were
Mhm.
bits and pieces that clearly showed those things that,
Yeah.
man, he was teetering
Yeah.
on that.
But
And
he,
it was like,
he was
man,
another one of
it's
those that
all
had
about-
been in since he was a kid.
Yeah.
So it was not just
He
learning how
didn't
to
know.
tattoo. It was learning how to adult.
Yeah.
And he had to figure that out.
You had
and
to
what,
grow up.
and
I
he-
mean,
he did a lot of growing up. That's what it was.
He has
And
definitely
he
done some
worked
growing up
his
for sure.
butt off, and it has paid off.
It
He's won
shows.
awards, like he's been in magazines
Yep.
too. And so now, like,
and it
it's
makes you
amazing to
feel
see what
good
he's
because
done
you
for
get
his
doubted
family.
you get doubted all this time, and you get told that you're going to be the most likely to not succeed in your town. You're going to be the one that
Mhm.
dies before you're, this age and this age. And I look back at it now and I'm like, man, like if only some of these people that, maybe used to say this stuff that have, possibly passed away on their own
mhm.
now, or just, random things like that. Like, it's like, I wish you could see me now
Right.
because I went out and proved your statistic to be wrong.
What if 17-year-old you could see you now? Like, would
dude.
you even believe it?
I would smack
No,
myself.
I
in the face.
wouldn't.
You wouldn't have wanted
Like,
to know
yeah.
17-year-old me. The thing is, 17-year-old me was this cocky, arrogant kid, man, that just, he had a dream but didn't know what the fuck he was talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of it. I thought I knew everything,
Mhm.
and I
Then you get
humbled-
into this business and you
Yeah.
find that you don't know shit.
and that I know, and I realized it's long into this relationship with tattooing that, dude, there's guys out here that'll slap the fuck out of you because of this industry, and you won't do a shit about it because of their name. You
Mm.
will not do nothing about it because of their name, and then because you look up to them. And the thing is, like, so that's why I always give my utmost respect to these guys that have really paved the path for tattooing, because they built something that has completely changed my life, has kept
Mhm.
me sober. I'm a recovering addict, and that's another big thing that these guys don't realize. Like, these inmates, some of these inmates that they're working with, some of these inmates have really heavy drug addictions. You get out onto the streets, you get complacent or you get bored at once upon a time, and the stress levels. And this is where I grow to begin with you're not teaching them what it's really going to be like out here.
Right.
Guess what happens to 90% of addicts that get stressed out
they all
revert right back to it.
Yeah.
It takes
Because
the
it's what
strongest
they
of the
know.
strong.
It's
It
what
takes
they
the
know.
strongest of the strong to actually keep yourself sober throughout all the
Right.
stress, throughout all the, constant things of saying, oh, I give up, I'm going to commit,
Accept
I'm
the
gonna
stress,
off
lean
myself.
into it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
grow.
You
and
have
just-
to,
yeah.
it takes a different mental state
It
Yeah.
takes
to
it
be
takes,
able to overcome
I'm gonna be
a
honest.
lot of that.
I tell people this all the time. It takes a lunatic. I really believe that. It takes somebody that is full blown insane and
Mhm.
mentally crazy. Like, I believe that you have to be mentally
Right.
insane to full bore put yourself in this industry and do what some of us have done.
Well, and not every
Um,
shop that you could go into, regardless of whether or not there's felons there could be people with clean records there, but not every
Mhm.
shop you go into is going to support your sobriety
No,
and help you be your best
because
self. And
No,
a lot
because-
of our
yeah, because
a
a lot
lot
of
of our
those,
past
they are
life in tattooing was go tattoo and go out and party every
Live
night.
fast, die hard.
Like,
Yeah, you should do
exactly.
that.
Like, that was tattooing back in the day, and that's
Yeah.
no longer tattooing anymore. We got guys like
No.
me and David, and you, for example. We got families. Every night, I'm home with my children. I'm home
Right.
safe in my bed, sleeping next to my beautiful wife. Like,
Right. We're professionals.
Stuff
Exactly.
to be
We're taking
care of
stuff to be-
ourselves,
stuff
yeah.
to be thankful
Yep.
for.
Taking
you
care of
know?
our families, taking care of our clients. And it's
But-
like,
It's a career. It's not a job. It's a career.
yeah.
I tell people,
and that's what you have to look
you
at
gotta
it as.
live, eat, breathe, and sleep this. And I feel
Yeah.
like in the institution, if they're gonna make this work, start letting them out the institution a little bit. Put them in a van, put them on a chain gang. I don't know what you're gonna have to do, but let them come out here and kind of experience.
do like
it a
work
little bit.
releases.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them come
Let
out
them do
here
guest
absolutely,
spots.
And
absolutely.
That would
No,
be amazing.
That would be
because
smart.
because I think there's no way for you to physically teach them tattooing in prison the right way unless you can actually physically
all
bring
they're
them out here.
dude, all they're learning is that
learning
vocation.
They're learning
fundamentals,
all the
man.
technical skills.
You're
yeah.
learning.
That
You're
they're not
learning the
learning-
fundamentals of
Right.
how to possibly lay a clean tattoo. You're learning
Mhm.
the fundamentals on probably how to technically apply a stencil. You're
Mhm.
learning the proper sanitation. I'm guessing.
and the
I
art.
believe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they
Um,
have to.
I mean, they're learning those things, which is all great,
Right.
man. That all goes into our industry, but you're not teaching them how hard it is to physically be in this career and push and be
Right.
with these
To
these
pay
heavy
rent and
hitters
to
out
market
here.
yourself and to manage
Exactly.
clients and to deal
Like,
with the communications.
People don't
and-
understand how much it takes to run a tattoo shop. You got to
Mhm.
understand paper towel costs, needle costs. Anybody that can,
You know, maybe the state needs to go and open up their own tattoo studio.
yeah, and that's what I was saying about the
And
10,000
go
square
here,
foot
you
building.
know,
You know,
let- it would be
something.
interesting.
Well, that would have to be inside. I mean, they could open a studio that has 6 chairs and the state fund it and be like, look, here, we're going to open a business and this is what we're going to do.
It would
and
pay for itself.
We're going to rehab these people. So
Mhm.
by the time we put them out here in the public eye where we have this studio
Yeah.
Mhm.
and
We let them
if
work
you guys
in this
run with
studio.
this, remember this was my idea. That
David gets coupons.
right? That-
I get to come
that-
into prison to talk.
Yeah, once they get into these studios, it's giving them that outside client feel. It's
Yeah.
giving them this is what the normalcy of this job really is.
Yeah.
And give them a place to actually hang their hat and go, okay, look, I get up, I can go to work every single day
Yep.
at this place. Granted, it may
I
be
don't
a
have to work out of
maybe
my
they
backpack
maybe
every
they are
day,
is still
you know.
incarcerated and they're still getting they're taking them straight over there. You know, maybe you have to have
Work for the
guards.
day and come back and
Yeah.
ankle
It's-
bracelet.
yeah.
Yeah. When people are that close to release, sometimes there's some flexibility
Yeah.
there because they know if they run, they're just going to be back in
I
for
just
another
think
10
there's
years.
a lot of-
6
you know,
months.
they
There's
have
a lot
house
of
arrest for
thinking that I
everybody.
feel
Why
like the
can't you do
state-
that?
There's a lot of things that I feel like the state like put into it, but I feel like
Mhm.
they didn't touch base on everything. And me as an artist, man,
Right.
me as somebody that was a former inmate that got out and knows how hard I fought to really get to
Mhm.
where I am. Like, look,
Mhm.
guys, I didn't just, and that's the thing I feel like too, they're setting them up a little bit. They're telling these guys, oh, you're going to be immediately be able to be put in this career. No, you're not.
Right. And well,
Because
I
listen,
know.
I have fought for now going on. I've been out of prison now almost 7 years.
mhm.
I am right at 6.5 year mark of being out of prison now. It took me 5 years to finally get to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So this year and a half now that I'm talking about,
Mhm.
this year and a half has been my most solid year. And this is the year that I finally have made a name for
Right.
myself. After 17 years of me putting my absolute everything into one basket and saying, I'm going to be a tattoo artist one day.
Mhm.
17 years as of next month, actually, I'll be in this industry.
Yeah.
And I'm finally just now making a name for
Right.
myself. I'm just now solidifying
And
myself.
you're just now laying the groundwork.
The whole incarceration thing, I wish that they would put guys like me or like David or like, you know, a couple other amazing artists I know. I wish they would put us in the limelight, the guys that have actually made it in this industry that have done, you know, some time or, you know, reach back out because I know the prison knows what we do.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
would
like-
be amazing. Have you come
like-
and talk and be like, listen, guys,
Like,
like,
this is what I did to get to where I'm at.
Right,
And
I love
wanna
that you're
share
doing
with you
art, but-
firsthand.
mhm.
You know?
Yeah, because they've got waiting lists. Like, of course, everybody that's sitting around in the prison wants a tattoo. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
they don't have anything else
And
going on to
so
save up
that's
your
another
Dorito
thing I
money.
want to touch base on with that. I don't believe that inmates should be getting tattooed in this.
Well, no,
Okay.
because of the spread of disease.
The
man.
thing
That's,
is,
Well,
that's
no matter
why-
how clean you're making it for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I was actually stressing this to Nate yesterday. No matter how clean you're giving them an output, you're telling me that you're gonna allow these people to buy it off of Canteen like it's just some item, and you're gonna allow them to come and get this tattoo like a scheduled appointment,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna tell me that you as a state is now gonna profit off of this person that has come in here and did all this work, but then on top of that, you're also gonna send them back to a dirty dorm.
Yeah. How are they going to keep it clean?
Exactly, because
That's
nothing
a
about
concern.
prison's clean. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
that's
no matter the housing
you
units,
make,
is
a, va-
nothing.
concern.
you make
Yeah.
a very valid
The
point. because
housing units,
are
nothing,
they-
nothing
are they
about
giving
prison
them
is
the
clean.
proper stuff to take care
Well,
of
if they're
this
putting the proper
and-
bandages on it that they can leave on for a few days, that's going to
I
help them
still
through
don't
the
think
initial.
it,
But are
it
they?
matters though,
they have the
because
right
But
kind
even
of
at this
soap
point,
and-
because
Right.
medical, I've been in prison and I've seen the sickest of the sickest, and it's not to discredit the institutions, okay?
Right.
our medical health care in the Department of Corrections sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a time, I'm not joking, I had a tooth in my mouth, for example, in prison that was so badly cutting into my gum. They told me that I would have to wait to get it removed and extracted from my mouth because they would not pull me out and take me on an out count to a real doctor to have this done. They told me I was going to have to serve out the rest of my prison sentence before I could even get it removed out of my mouth. So I lived with it for 6.5 years before I could finally get this removed out of my mouth.
Man.
Medical is not going to check on these inmates after these tattoos are finished.
Yeah.
How are you going to formulate that you can?
Yeah, they're like I said,
they're
the
gonna
whole
get
article
tattoos
was
either
not
way.
complete.
It's not
I don't
complete.
think it had its full disclosure. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of unanswered questions that I had after I read it, and
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
the showers are dirty.
The
in
perspective
prison.
was
The-
kind of
I
like
mean,
it's a new and exciting thing,
Right.
and I think one of the things they mentioned in another one I read is a lot of things about it in terms of implementation are similar to cosmetology programs that they had already implemented. Now, of course, you have the extra element of, all the biohazard stuff that's involved.
right.
But in terms of like the way they're going to manage a business, the way they're going to get licensed, a lot of things are fairly similar. The way they're going to manage books, the way they're going to communicate with clients. So, yeah, but that's absolutely a valid thing that they're going to have to make
it
sure.
goes on to hygiene, man. Like hygiene's my biggest concern, and that's what I wanted to touch
Yeah.
base on at the end of this topic was how are you going to tell me that you are going to keep up with that inmate's hygiene during the process because you just let him buy a tattoo off canteen like it was a honey bun,
Right. But then if it does get infected,
like
then
I think if you're gonna do this
Yeah, what
program,
type of
That's the
care are they
state's
going to
problem.
receive?
Yeah,
I think if
that
you're
is
gonna,
a
I think
state
if you're
issue.
gonna do this program, I think it is up to the state, like Ink Master, for example.
Mhm.
Ink Master, how you get onto that show to be a client, you submit that, hey, I want to be a client. I'm willing to give my body up, blah blah blah. Then they choose you. You get a call. Hey, you're gonna be tattooed on this show. You don't know who your artist is gonna be, but you're getting a tattoo now. Okay. Now you show up. Now you're getting, whoever Bo Schmo that's on that show, you're getting them to tattoo on you. You tell them what you want, blah. I think that the institution should make it to where they are finding the client, and then if the client is willing to let an inmate tattoo on them, then they let that client come in, do their background check.
The client has to be medically cleared and approved before they're allowed to get a tattoo.
So are those clients inmates?
The clients are all inmates.
That's what I thought.
That's not what I'm
Yeah.
talking. I don't.
You're
I'm talking about
from the
legit
public?
clientele from the public
Okay.
is willing to put themselves up to
Mhm.
come in here as a client and come into the institution and actually
Yeah.
get a tattoo by these people.
Well, and especially people that are formerly incarcerated, they might have something they
Yeah,
want covered.
Exactly.
They might be more comfortable with that
But I
environment.
don't think they should be tattooing on inmates.
Yeah.
I do not believe that because I think it's still going to lead to infection. There's still going
Right.
it might even be worse. I'm honestly going to be honest because
But I mean, that's just treating the actual system itself just as it is now. It's just you're taking it out of the cell and putting it in this
a
room
controlled
and then
environment.
sending it right back to the cell.
back to the cell, yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of redundant.
Well, they are using clean needles and clean machines and cleaning. So that's
Right.
like
that's
there is
that's
that,
the thing.
but
You can make being in prison. I know everything. A lot of people think getting tattooed in prison is very disgusting, but there's ways to be very sterile in prison. Believe it or
Right.
not, me being around Manny, for example, I knew very, very extreme ways to be super sterile. Down to the way we popped our needles. I mean, we're putting extreme amount of heat onto the end of these needles. We're doing it just like they used to solder needles together back in the old school days. That's sterile. Heat is sterile. You know what I mean?
But you don't have gloves, right?
Well, no, believe it or not, we would get gloves. We could
You
get
did?
Gloves. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah. Manny taught me in prison to never tattoo without gloves. I never once tattooed in prison without gloves on.
That's awesome.
I mean, they were hard to get, but you could get them. You were paying
You're like,
for them.
Get with me next month. I might get a pair.
Believe it or not, what I would do whenever I did tattoos in prison was I would inquire that into their cost of paying me. They were in charge of getting me at least 10 pairs of gloves each time. But the thing is, I feel like they need to be setting up good sterile clients that are willing to come from the streets, that are willing to get tattooed by these inmates for them to train themselves, and then they get to go home to their own sterile environment. They don't go back to a prison cell.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's an
Completely
interesting
cut
point.
the inmates out of it. The inmates should not be allowed to buy
It
tattoos
makes
off
me wonder
canteen. They're capitalizing. In my opinion, this is a way for the state to capitalize.
Well, I think that what they're
I think
paying
you
for
are, but
tattoos is going to be the dude's salary.
It's that aspect of, do they really have enough confidence that people from the outside are willing to come in and have that done?
And most of our prisons are in rural areas.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of things that just raise red flags to me with this whole thing. You know, like, I don't believe inmates should be getting the tattoos. I think if you're going to do it, you should already have clients in store that are willing to get tattooed and like giving their trust to the inmate to let them kind of try to build a craft, I guess.
And then build a clientele.
Yeah,
so
and build a clientele.
So I guess we'll just see where the state takes this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely in it. I
support it, but I don't support it.
I would be
I'm on the fence.
My concern would be in terms of multiplying this program. If they're like, okay, it seems like it's going well, we like it, it's paying for itself, let's institute it in some other facilities. Depending on who they get to run it is going to dramatically affect the education these people get, because there are people that are a quality tattooer that are a garbage teacher.
Yep.
And it takes a special kind of teacher to be in that environment and to be effective with those students and be impacting them and making sure they do know those things for the outside. Like, okay, you got people lined up right now wanting to see you, but what are you going to do to market yourself when you get out? How are you going to communicate with those clients? How are you going to manage the bookings? How are you going to?
This is the thing.
It's crazy. It's almost like you would think that maybe splitting it off and having, a couple of teachers, you have one that is on the level of more of a practical, and then you have one that's more on the technical, to where, look, let's show you this side of this, and then this person over here is going to show you how to execute all of this. And then, at the end game, you've got somebody that will show you how to take that further once you're done with all of this. I mean,
and it didn't say how long these apprenticeships are, but it did say one of the people that was in it was going to get released in like a year or two, and that he's in it enough that he's doing full back pieces now. Right. So he's not in the initial stages of this program. So if they're doing 1 to 2 year apprenticeships, a lot of people rush through apprenticeships in the state of Missouri and don't do them justice. If you've got 2 years, one person should be able to teach you that, as long as that person's equipped to be teaching them right.
Yeah.
Like, and I would say, honestly, ideally, it would be someone who had been experienced with the prison system and it says, you can see, here's where I started, here's where I got to, and here's where I am now. And honestly, that guy, I don't know him. I don't know if he's doing a good job, but that's the perfect situation.
Yeah.
You've got your shop, you've got your dream. That's amazing.
Well,
but God forbid something happened and you're not able to tattoo anymore.
Yeah.
That type of position would be perfect for a person with your experience and your skills.
Yeah, it's like trying to build another me. I mean, like I said, it all follows back to like, how bad does somebody really want it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then another thing I wanted to touch base, like, what is the state going to do financially to help these inmates when they get out? What are you telling me you're going to go buy them $1,000 machine?
I don't
Are
think
you
so.
going to, what are you going to do to solidify them to be able to help push themselves?
I mean, that was something that just wasn't touched on.
Transitional, they don't. Transitional living programs do exist, but I don't know that needs to be specific to the tattoo
What are
people.
you gonna give them?
Helping
for their
them find a
tools?
job, making sure they have the documents they need in terms of like their social security card and these things to be able to apply for jobs. Yeah, I would hope that they would help them find a place. Ideally, if they get into a place, they would have an extra machine that they could use until they get on their feet, or and they don't need $1,000 machine to start out.
Maybe it's a hey, you just got released present. Here you go. Here's a tattoo machine. Have fun. Make sure that you go and get a job.
Like, here's your equipment.
Yeah, well,
because I know how expensive tattoo equipment is, and if you take it very seriously,
Really
like some of us artists, we want the best top of the line equipment because we want to make sure we're producing the best top of the line tattoos.
Right.
And I know what I spend on my equipment. It's not cheap, and sometimes I don't like looking at the price tags on it.
No, it's a big investment.
Well, it doesn't say where that money's going either, that they're charging for tattoos. So I'm sure some of it's going to the man's salary that's teaching. Some of it's going to the equipment that's in the shop, but some of that equipment might be donated from other people that are like, hey, I came from here. Do you want my hand-me-down machine?
Yeah.
I want people to do well. But maybe some of that they're letting them set back. And if they're letting them set back $1 or $2 for every $10 an hour that they're tattooing, they set that back, they can get a pretty decent $200 machine to start them out that's going to do them well. They can start off just doing black and gray, so they're not having to buy an arsenal of expensive color inks.
Yeah.
And maybe they go to a place that will let them work on a 60/40 instead of starting out the gate paying booth rent, and has a booth set up and ready to go for them.
Yeah.
And that might be all it takes to get their foot in the door till they can build up and get out established on their own. And
Exactly.
you know, I
just-
think it has
I'm ready
a lot
to
of
see
promise.
it transform. I'm ready to see it evolve. Maybe it's something I need to do and write the DOC. Maybe I could somehow get myself
Or
implemented
write to
into
this guy
program.
that's teaching it,
Yeah,
because
and
he's
be
a
like,
listening
look,
ear
I
that's not
firsthand know what it's like
bureaucracy.
to do this.
Maybe we need to bring him in on a podcast.
Get him
Yeah.
guest speak. Yeah, go talk to him.
Like,
And
hey,
his
man.
name's Bone Break, by the way. And
Okay.
but break is spelled like car brakes.
Okay, Bone Break.
Bone
I've never
Break.
heard of him. So
Yeah, well, he's from up
Hadn't
in
either.
like the Kansas City area, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
just-
he's
I
been
don't know.
out of tattooing for, I want to say it might have been like 2017 or something. They said he had his stroke, or maybe it was a little before
Okay.
that. I
Yeah.
can't remember. But he's been out for a while.
Well, I mean, me as an artist, I think if I could somehow get into this program, like I personally want to sit down and show these tattoo artists me tattooing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like show them what I do, what precautions I take during my setup and things like
Mhm.
that. You know what I mean? Because everybody sets their stuff up differently.
right, there is a limit to only
And if-
learning from
if
one
the,
artist.
And if the guy
Mhm.
is not physically tattooing,
Mm-hmm.
see, that kind of throws another red flag. Yes, he might be in the industry, but you tell he hasn't tattooed since 2017.
Right, it's his left arm, so he can't stretch.
Oh.
So they said for a while he was trying to tattoo and have somebody have an apprentice stretch for him, and then he'd tattoo, but they decided that's long term.
I think everything's doable though, you know. It kind of bums me out that at least the guy isn't being able to, you know, kind of show them firsthand, you know, a little bit of what to do in certain things. Like I just feel like the guys need in this institution, I feel like they need another teacher, in my opinion, that actually can physically still tattoo. It's nothing against their program or anything, but I learned most of my things by sitting down and watching another person doing it. I learned how to pull off soft tones by watching David James. I learned how to do these things because I physically watched another artist do it.
Mm-hmm.
I can listen to you talk 24/7,
right?
but it's sometimes talking don't do so much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I think the state has a lot to really, you know,
take into consideration.
There's a lot there that they
I-
need to unpack.